Okay, so for exercise 2, we're going to start with a file that is 5 inches wide by 2 inches for the height. We're going to name it last name, first name, EX2. And we're going to start with a background picture, just like what we did before with the beating heart. Any picture you want. It could be a pattern, it could be just anything you think you're going to like the looks of. So go ahead and grab something and then drag it in. And then if you need to size that image by transforming it, and then we need a background and we need a ball. And what we're going to do with this animation is kind of simulate a ball kind of bouncing around, kind of like Pong. It's going to hit the edges. It's not going to be completely realistic because the ball won't be squishing at all. It'll stay pretty, perfectly round. But that's okay. It was just kind of to learn how to do that. This is what this exercise is really all about. So I'm going to make a ball. I could do it by making an empty new layer and then using the elliptical marquee and paint bucketing in a color. Or I can also do it kind of like making a planet, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to pull a texture in from the internet. And I just happen to be looking at tiles, so I'm going to use a tile texture. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to drag it in. Let's see. And drop it. I'll make this whole file bigger by doing View, Fit on Screen. And you can do that if you want to see your animation larger. You might zoom out just a little because it is kind of pixely. And then now to make a round ball with the texture in it, I'll use my elliptical marquee. I'll hold Shift and I'll draw a circle. I can always make that circle smaller later. If I need to move it around, I can move the selection using the arrow keys. And then the easy way to have the circle, the ball, be on its own layer is to just copy paste. So Command C, Command V, or Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste. And now that's put the ball on its own layer. And then I still have the whole texture on a layer. I'll just throw that away. So I'll throw the big piece in the trash. So I'm left with the round ball. Next, I'll make it the size I want. I'll transform it down using Command T or Edit Free Transform. And I'll spherize it just like I did a planet. So I'm going to get the selection marquee around it by Command clicking right on the layer thumbnail. And then I'll use the Spherize filter, which is under Distort. So Filter, Distort, Spherize. And then I'll put a little inner shadow on it. So I double-clicked, do that again, double-click to get layer style, inner shadow. Be sure you highlight the whole thing, don't just click the box. And you raise up the distance and the size to get that effect. So like I said, this is not mandatory. If you don't want to make this, if you just want it to be a solid round shape, you can do that too. Alright, so once you have your ball, you're ready for the animation part. We need our animation panel open, and if you don't have it, go to Window and choose Animation. And we want to be in frame mode again instead of timeline. So click here, the lower right corner, to get into frame mode. And basically what we're going to do with this, we're going to position the ball where we want it to start. And it can really start wherever you like. It could start in a corner and come flying out, or it could also start, on an end and then come down. If you start kind of where you're not in a corner, it might be good to start with a guideline. And what I usually do is show my rulers, so View, Rulers, and then you can grab the rulers and you can mark right where the ball is starting, because you're going to basically have it bounce across and then come back and end where it started. So that way you can do that. Or you can start in a corner, then you don't really need to do that. Now, to go ahead and do the animation, here's what you do. You basically start with the ball in one spot, and then you click and you make a new frame, and you move the ball to the first place you want it to go to. And then we're going to do the in-between frames, the tween. And that is this button right here that's next to the copy. And so you're going to go ahead and click that. And it gives you the option for how many frames you want to tween. And we're tweening with the previous frame. So we're tweening with the first frame. And then if we say 5, which is what we have, it should be pretty good because we didn't travel all that far. We could also make it 10, or whatever number you think. And then you'll say OK, and you'll have your very first movement. So if you want to play that, you can see what that's going to be like. Now, one thing, the default on this is 10 seconds, which is going to take forever for that ball to move. So let's change that. We'll select all of them, and we'll shift click to grab them, or you could go to this little options and you could say select all, or but shift click and then just adjust one and it'll adjust all of them. I would say maybe 0.2 or 0.1. Let's try 0.2 to start, and then you can play that and see that ball travel. It's kind of slow actually, so I think I'll do 0.1 for that travel. So there we go. So the next step is to copy and then move. And you have to always remember to copy, otherwise you'll have a gap where there's no ball. So go to the end frame, you copy it, and then go ahead and move the ball to the next spot, and then do your tween. And then you copy again, then move the ball, and then do the next tween. And then copy, move. Now, if you're not traveling as far, you might want to tween fewer frames. So in this one, since I'm going less distance, I'm going to drop it to 3. And you can always kind of go back and see how that's playing. But we're going to continue until the ball goes back to where we started. So just remember, copy, move, tween, and you'll be good. The thing I do when I mess up, I forget that copy, so I end up with a gap. So I'll copy, I'll move. However, wherever you imagine that ball's going to go. And then you just continue on with the same sequence.
It's slow.
Until you get back, hopefully, to where you started. And hopefully you've moved them in a good way so that it looks good. I have a feeling this one might look a little weird, but we'll see. Because of where I'm trying to end up. And once you get done, just play it, see how it goes. And if you're lucky, it looks reasonably normal. And then you can always set it to play forever, so it's going to keep going and just cycle through. Now, if you mess up, sometimes the best thing to do is to figure out where, pause it when you get to that mess up, and then throw away frames. And if you need to throw anything away, you can by selecting them. So you would just shift-click to grab the ones you want to get rid of and toss into the trash. If you manage to get it so that it looks good and you want to save it, we're going to save in the exact same way we saved yesterday. So you're going to do a file and a save for web and devices, and then you'll switch to the tab that's the 4UP tab, and basically just pick the one that looks decent, that's the smallest file size. And you can see, I've got 161K, I've got 144K, 153. So this is my biggest file of my 3 GIFs. I can play those too to kind of see what those are going to look like. They all look pretty good. If none of them look good for you, raise the color up to, I'm at 128 right now. You can try, a few different sizes, and you're kind of trying to balance. You want it to look good, but you don't want it to be a huge file. So you have to sort of play around and see what you can get away with. If I drop to 64, it still looks pretty good. I could do that. That's going to be a smaller file. Now I'm going to save it. And, pay attention to where you're saving. I'm saving to the desktop. And then I'll play it in Safari by dragging that animation to the little browser window, and I'll see how it plays. And one thing you'll see is when it plays in Safari, it's going to play a little faster than it does in Photoshop. So if it's going real slow in Photoshop, be aware it's going to be a little bit faster. If you're going really fast in Photoshop, it's going to be even faster in the browser. Always play it before you turn it in. Save both versions too, so that you can edit it if something goes wrong or if at some point you want to change it. So I'm also going to do a normal file, save as, and I'm going to save the Photoshop version. Remember, you cannot edit the GIF version. So you always want to save both, which for these exercises it's not quite as important, but when we start doing a week-long project, you're not going to save as a GIF until you're completely finished. So at the end of each day while you're working on it, you're going to save it as a Photoshop file so that you can edit it. I always have somebody every year who doesn't remember that and just saves it as a GIF, doesn't save the Photoshop version, and then they have to start over. So don't let that happen to you with this.